Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Jess and I am the Fair Director of the Other Art Fair's Virtual Editions. And today I am going to be giving you, A Small World, an exclusive preview of our Brooklyn Virtual Edition, which is opening next week. So to give you some background, we launched the Other Art Fair's Virtual Editions in March this year, after a year of postponing our in-person events all around the globe. So in 2020, we had 14 fairs planned across the US, the UK and Australia, of course, none of which could go ahead. So we created the virtual editions and we've really tried to recreate the Other Art Fair experience as best as we can virtually. And it's been a way for us to continue promoting and selling our artists' work to our audience where we can't do in person. So in the same way that our artists would curate their own booth and hang all their work at the fair, they do the same for our virtual fairs. So they design their booth and they upload all of the works themselves. And just like our in-person fairs, visitors can navigate through the booths. They can chat to our artists directly by booking a video call with them on their booth or just using a general chat function. So it really is a platform to promote connections between artists and art lovers and art buyers. As well as this, it wouldn't be the Other Art Fair without a programme of other features. And for the Brooklyn Virtual Edition, we are working with some really exciting partners like Giphy, who are creating a digital animation booth, Artec, our charity partner, and Marquee TV, who are showing some really beautiful dance performances, which you can watch on their booth at the fair. We also have some creative online workshops with Bombay Sapphire. So there's lots for people to see and get involved in and get creative. But really, the Other Art Fair is all about artists. We champion the work of emerging and independent artists working in all types of medium. So for the Brooklyn Fair, we have over 80 artists at the virtual edition. And for this talk today, ahead of the fair opening next week, I am going to be highlighting and chatting to 3 of our rising star artists. And as I said at the beginning, you'll get to see an exclusive preview of what the fair is going to look like as well. The Brooklyn Fair was actually designed on our Brooklyn venue, the Brooklyn Expo Centre. So if anyone has ever been to the Brooklyn Fair before, you might recognise this venue. So these 3 artists are all very different and they have very different work. Not only are they extremely talented and definitely ones to look out for at the fair, and they do kind of represent and highlight some of the art trends that you can find at the fair. So I'm really excited to introduce you to them so we can find out a bit more about them and you can kind of have a behind the scenes insight to their work and their processes. So if anyone has any questions for the artists, please feel free to type them in the chat at the end or all the way through, and we'll have time for questions at the end. So first up, I am going to introduce Faye Alexeli. Faye is a Greek artist who is living in Greece at the moment, but she has exhibited at lots of our fairs previously in Brooklyn, in LA, and also in London. Hi, Faye.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today. So I think to start, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your work? And I'm just going to share my screen and jump into the fair and get your booth up.
Okay, so basically I'm a digital artist and I'm focusing on digital collage and photography. So the way I produce my work is I'm using parts of photos and combine them mostly in Photoshop to create my compositions. I get like a lot of inspiration from American landscapes, and I think my work has this kind of this nostalgia, using like some a lot of like sun and the moon and some gradient skies.
Yeah, I mean, so here is your booth for, it's the first time you've exhibited at one of our virtual fairs.
Yes.
Do you want to talk us through any of the pieces? Have you got a particular series that you're showing at the Brooklyn Fair?
Yeah, okay, so basically as you are approaching the booth, you can see like 3 really big pieces square, and basically this is all like new work Some of them I created like before the pandemic, but I never had the chance to show them. But if you go to this one, I also have it like on my background. This is like the newest piece I have done, and it's basically inspired by some recent road trips that I did to California and the American West, and all these like desert, very surreal landscapes that I'm really excited to see. And on the other side, you can see like smaller works. Also like on your right side, we have like I was thinking like to have some more fun and more like social kind of works that you see people like having fun, because I thought that this is something that people have missed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think your pieces, like you said, they do have this kind of surreal element to them, or futuristic, kind of transporting you to another world. And I think especially this past year, that's quite a big thing for people looking for that escapism. So we've all been like trapped inside, looking at the same four walls for months. So there's definitely a sense of people wanting something on their wall, which is going to give them a bit of a break and take them away somewhere else for a while. Is this something that you're drawn to in your work?
Yeah, I think it started like really subconsciously, like me trying to escape and try to find like these places, these kind of like happy places. Yeah, I think this is what it's all about, like creating these spaces that you can kind of like get lost and kind of like immerse in a new. And yeah, from the other side, we have like a kind of a different palette, and these kind of works are a bit like you have like this darker reds palette, and this is more about love in general, to be honest. So this corner is my favorite because you have like from the one side like this kind of like more sensual, more eroticism in the air, and then you turn your head and you just see like this really big, bright piece that it's about disappearing. And I think these two kind of like complement each other in a way.
Yeah. And you studied architecture at uni, right?
Yeah.
Is this something that kind of influences your work at all, or did you kind of move away from that?
I think I still think as an architect, and I always think of perspective and depth and how I'm going to position things. So in many ways, and I use a lot of architecture of buildings. So I think in many ways the School of Architecture definitely influenced me and shaped me and my work. So I think it's everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can see that through the works, definitely. I mean, I often find your works quite empowering, whether they're featuring women or have quite a kind of strong, powerful vibe to them. Are there any other themes you like to explore in your work?
I think I have like lots of layers and lots of things that I think about daily. So there are pieces definitely that they have to do about empowering, and for example, my facing series, which I don't have right now in the stand, but you can have a look at my Saatchi profile, that they are definitely about that. And I also like quite enjoying when people are like seeing different stuff in my work. So I might have done it for some reasons and they might see something completely different. And that's, I love this part actually, that anyone can see whatever they want, you know.
Yeah, lots of different layers. How have you found creating work in the past year? Have you found it harder during COVID, or have you found inspiration in places that you maybe didn't have before?
So I usually travel a lot, and this period I didn't manage to travel at all. So I was kind of looking at my archive of photographs, and so I found inspiration in that kind of things. And I also did create a lot of new work, because what I'm doing is, like, as we said, like kind of escapism. So I needed it more than usual to kind of create this. So yeah, it was very productive, but also like helped me in a mental way.
Yeah. And do you have any other exciting projects coming up, or that we can look forward to, or seeing your work elsewhere?
So I've been actually editing my photographs from these road trips in the American West that I did, and it's called like Showtown, and it's about like the desert and the kind of isolation that you feel there. And I think these works, this one and the Somewhere to Disappear, are really influenced by the photographs that I took. So yeah, it's like I think I have like the photography and the collages and the kind of work in a parallel way, one feeding the other.
Nice. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking through some of your works. If anyone has any questions, as I said, please put them in the chat, and we will have time for questions at the end. But yeah, thank you, Faye. And for now, we're going to move on. So I'm just going to stop sharing. So next up, we have Lola Ayodele. Lola is a multidisciplinary artist originally from Lagos, Nigeria, right? And you're now in Brooklyn. So thank you for joining us. I am going to share my screen. Your booth is actually just opposite Faye, so I'm just going to swivel around and go onto your booth. But as I said, you're new to the fair, right? So you've never exhibited with us before, which is very exciting. So could you tell us a bit about yourself and your work and what you do?
Absolutely. So as she said, my name is Lola Ayodele, and I am a Nigerian now living in Brooklyn. So I maybe about the past 4 years, I've been shooting on film. And it was sort of a coincidence / me copying my sister and whatever she did. So we used to live on the West Coast, and one day she wanted to start taking film. So I sort of followed her to the thrift shop, and there was like a stack of $5 film cameras. And we had this guy next to us. He was looking at us rummaging, and he was like, I don't think that one works. You should pick this one. So it was really cool, because the first camera that we ever got was like picked out by this guy called River, and we never saw him ever again. But I used that camera for like 5 years. Wow. So that's how I started shooting film.
Thank you to that guy.
I know. Thank you, River, wherever he is in the universe. That's how I got into film. My sister got a camera, and then I was like, this could be a fun thing to do together, so why not? So then I started taking pictures as well.
Nice. And so this is one series of your work. I think it's titled The Sky is My Home, with your title of the booth. Can you talk us through this series? Because I mean, I've seen lots of your other work, which is quite different.
Yes. So fascinatingly, I was so conflicted. I was like, what work do I show? Because usually I film my friends or my family, or just if I'm walking around, something catches my film. But for this one specifically, I kept thinking about how in quarantine, a lot of people were anxious, not knowing when it was going to end. And I thought, what's one thing I can do to add more peace into the world? And I was like, I could make people think about the sky. So I went on a walk one day in Brooklyn, and I tried to capture the sky from as many angles as possible. And the whole goal of this series is to create a sense of sereneness. I think a lot of times we miss the things that are in front of us. So I was like, what does it look like if I not like put wonder, but what would it look like if I expected to be amazed? So then I walked around, and I kept seeing all these like huge pink clouds that look like cotton candy. And you walk more, and you see this tree and the way it's shaping it, and it's almost like it's calling you to pay attention. So this piece for me was something that was so calming to my soul, because I know quarantine was a lot for a lot of people, but every time I would go on walks, I felt like my breathing would slow down and I could pay attention. So it's almost like my little call for people to look up. Like the next time you're stressed, just look up, just breathe. Yeah. Like, it's like a perspective shift. So it is different from my work, but I thought it'd be important to just show the series and see like all the different things that I could show, even if it was one evening. So the last picture you see is from my window, and then I kind of like slowly take you on that walk. So if you're from SA, yes, I take you on the journey. This is Howard and Chauncey. It's right on the corner of Ralph. Again, I think I just wanted to show that you don't really have to go that far for a wander, because a lot of people felt like, oh, I can't get to do this because of restrictions. But the whole call here is just go outside. Maybe there's something beautiful waiting to be captured. So that's why this series, I wanted to share it.
Yeah, and the colors are amazing in these photos, and the light as well. Like the light on that cloud is so beautiful and so nicely captured.
It's breathtaking. Like a lot of things that I capture, they're so normal that if somebody told you, yeah, I took a picture of the clouds, you're like, why? But then when you see these pictures, you're like, oh, that's why. Like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Like you said, lots of your other work, which I've seen, is kind of just pictures of normal people in everyday life going about ordinary situations. And it's just kind of capturing that moment. But how would you describe your work? Would you say it's like kind of documentary photography, or?
I would say that, because a lot of my favorite work is candid, right? And sometimes when I take the pictures, people, like my friends are like, why do you take that? There's nothing special in that moment. But then they look back years after and they're like, oh, I remember that day walking down the street on Powell's. So I think for me, whenever I'm taking pictures, I'm always trying to capture an essence. So it's not necessarily that I want to make something up, but I'm like, how can I show what I'm already seeing? So in my other work, I just thought in that moment, life is so magical and I have to have like a memorabilia of it. So trying to capture the essence of something. Like when I look at these pictures, I remember how serene I felt that evening. And when I'm taking pictures of my friends, I remember the essence of family. I'm just like, oh, I'm so happy to be alive. I'm part of this community. So a lot of the times with my pictures, I'm trying to hold something in place forever, like memorialize it. And then I can like take it to other people and show them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, are there any other particular themes you're interested in, or?
Absolutely. Human emotion. So I recently started a podcast to start having conversations with people. And the whole goal was to see how different we are, but if we just listened, we could connect on something, even if we saw the world differently. So I just did an episode with my brother called Permission to Express. And for me, photography is a way I express, right? Like some of the reasons why I create art is because I feel like the things I need to say, and sometimes it's easiest with art. Like even when I'm writing like a script, like it feels like it's easier to talk through my characters because sometimes I don't have the words for it. But if it's this person that I'm creating in front of me, it just flows more seamlessly. So I think for me, expression of emotion, I'm so fascinated by people.
And you're also a poet, right? I've read some of your poetry. You're very multidisciplinary. You do poetry, you do photography, videos, illustration, all-round superstar. But with your poetry, is there like, does your poetry and photography ever relate to each other or influence each other, or photography and other mediums as well? Do you find that you kind of have relationships between them, or are they more separate?
Fascinatingly, they're separate. So when I'm creating poems, it's like I see something in front of me, I'm super inspired, it's like an implosion of some sort, and I have to put it out. So the last poetry book that I made, I read a chapter of this book called First and Last Men, and it was kind of a sci-fi of what the world would look like, and he created this false wars between the Anglo-Saxons. It was just fascinating, and it was so unrelated, but when I read that, it's like all these words started coming out, and I literally wrote like a 10-page poetry essay. But then with my pictures, it's like I see something beautiful, I'm like, it's almost like a ding, I'm like, this is fascinating, I have to capture it. So with my poetry, almost sometimes my poems feel more urgent. They're like, I have to say something, and I'm like, where's my piece of paper? Like, where can I write this down? But with my pictures, it's like there's an essence, and it's like I'm trying to hold this so that I can show the next person. But with my poetry and my words, it feels like I'm trying to say something, I'm trying to convey a message. So in a weird way, that it's almost like one, I'm ingesting information and then I'm putting it back out as to what I see. And then my pictures, I'm like, life is great, and I want everybody to see how great it is. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, they are different. I mean, you're obviously very creative, but you have a quite serious and maybe what some would call non-creative job as well, right?
I do, as you can see, I'm in the office.
Yeah. So is that your work as an accountant as well?
Yes, so I work as an accountant from my 9 to 5, and this is our busy season actually. So in America, our deadlines they were April 15th, but they've moved to May 17th. So it's almost like I'm using all sides of my brain, and
Yeah.
that's why even when I slip up with my creative work, it's almost like a pullback. Like it helps me breathe again, because sometimes the work can be overload of information, but when I'm outside and when I'm writing or creating, it helps me step back and see the bigger picture of everything.
Yeah, because
Very
I
different.
was going to ask you, like, how do you balance that creative side with your job,
Mhm.
like that very formal side?
In all honesty, it's different for different seasons. So when I first started the job, it was like little bits of creativity here and there. And then there's seasons where I'm like, no, I desperately need to create something. So just so I can express all these thoughts in my head and then I do something new. Um, but in this season, I will say, like the last podcast episode that I put out, I think there was like a 4 month gap just because I wasn't necessarily sure how to say the thing that I wanted to say. And then I kept hearing other people speak, and I was like, I think I just need to say something about it. So it's either when I've been sitting with something for a long time and then a friend encourages me, I'm like, you're right, I do need to say something about that. Or I need to express myself. Again, sometimes it's easier through art for me. So there are different reasons, but in this, like I don't even like using the word balance because I'm like it goes in waves, right? Like
Yeah,
sometimes
right.
I'm in a flow, other times I'm like, when was the last time I did art? So it literally is like it's such a real thing for me.
Yeah,
Also seeing little things as art. Like I love twirling and dancing, and I'm like, that is a form of expression. I'm like, I need to honor that. So I do dance a lot and take walks and try to write little poems there, here and there. So I
yeah,
feel it works, but it's not stereotypical. I don't really have a formula. It's more so how can I become more me as I show up to my work, as I create more art? Like how can I be the authentic version of me or not what I think I should be as an accountant? So that's
yeah.
something I'm always thinking about. It's like how can I
Yeah,
be
and that's definitely something to take away and what I guess all people should be thinking about in their
right?
lives and in their
That's true.
jobs. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, thank you so much for talking us through your work, and I'm excited to see your work at in real life, well, maybe if I don't get to go, but in the real life Brooklyn Fair as well, and see more of your photography. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat and we will come back at the end.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lola. So for our third artist, I'm very excited to introduce Watson Mir. Watson is one of our Brooklyn winners of our New Futures programme, which we're extremely excited about. Welcome, thank you.
Hey, how's it going?
Thanks, good, thanks. How are you?
Doing fine, enjoying this sunny day in Brooklyn.
Nice. Well, so to give a bit of an intro, our New Futures programme was designed to help launch the careers of really talented emerging artists through a prize that includes exhibition space at the fair and mentorship. And you are one of our 3 winners for our first Brooklyn Fair, Brooklyn Prize. You're a painter based in Brooklyn, right? So congratulations to begin with on winning the New Futures Award. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your work? And I'm going to get your booth up in the fair and share my screen.
Yeah, sure. Originally from Florida, both of my parents are of Haitian descent. Actually started creating art at the age of 2. I was unable to speak until the age of 5. Was in some disabilities schools, so they actually taught me how to draw in order to communicate. But once I turned 5, I was able to talk, but I actually never let go of like actually creating artwork to communicate. It kind of evolved into something where I would like kind of anytime I would want to express myself, I would like just draw it or paint it.
Wow.
Yeah, so around the age of 13, my parents, they brought a computer to the home. I was like, hey, what's going on with this? Found a program called Microsoft Paint. And I was like, oh, it's an art program on here. Before that, I was usually just drawing or painting. And I've basically been fiddling away with Microsoft Paint for the past, for almost half of my life. I started when I was 13. And then basically that's my medium right now.
That is incredible.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so here we've got your booth and some of your works. Do you want to talk us through any of the pieces on your booth in particular that you'd like to?
Yeah, sure. We can start off with My Brother's Keeper right there on the right, to the far right. Yeah, I actually created this piece around the election of Donald Trump. His inauguration day in the United States was about a week before Martin Luther King Day, which is a holiday that we celebrate in the United States. And I know, like, I just got the spirit to create the piece. I actually was commissioned from a program here who, like, they kind of celebrate MLK Day here, and they wanted me to do a piece. I created this. They didn't choose a piece, but I actually put it out there, and you know, a lot of people kind of gravitated towards it.
It went viral, didn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people gravitated towards it. The piece was in a lot of protests around. It's been in protests for the past 4 or 5 years. So I'm just really happy that a lot of people resonated with the message that I was trying to portray within the piece.
Amazing. And I can't believe, like you said, that Microsoft Paint is your main medium. It's so unique. And I think it's something that I'm sure lots of people would have had experience with Paint before, from maybe growing up and like using it on the computer and like just doing a few kind of squiggles and lines. And then you see these artworks, which are so skilled, and realize that they're completely drawn in Microsoft Paint. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone because it's extremely tedious, very time consuming. But I just love I love the end result of it all. And it's just, like you said, it's different. It's not something that you see often with people utilizing Microsoft Paint.
Yeah. So. And do you also paint with paints as well? I read that you were starting to kind of paint on top of your digital works.
Yeah, so I typically once I'm done with the piece, I'll print it out, and now I've gotten more so into like actually painting over the work as well to add extra detail, add extra details to it as well. Nice.
How do you find that like relationship between the digital painting and then the actual physical painting?
I actually find it it's very. Since I started doing it first, it's kind of like I'm revisiting something from my childhood almost. Like I said, originally when I really started creating art, it was more so drawings and painting. So now that I'm actually just revisiting it, it's kind of like I don't know why the word why the phrase full circle comes to mind. It's kind of like a full circle.
Yeah. And who are, like, lots of your paintings feature people in them. Are these people that you know or from your like life, or are they from your imagination? Kind of where do you get these figures from?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm originally from Florida, lived in Florida all the way up, and I'm 34 now. I lived in Florida all the way up until 29. And I moved to Philadelphia in 2015, and it was the first time I like experienced, like, to be honest, just different types of like people, different types of people from the African diaspora. It really showed me that Black people aren't really monolithic. I saw so many different types of Black people, Muslim people who were of Muslim faith, people who just had different styles, different cultures, and it was just very interesting to me, and it inspired me so much that I just literally started just painting and drawing these people, and like, you know, just conversing with them in their lives and what they were going through, like really just starting to based off of the conversations I was doing and just the experiences I was having with some of these people, just started including them within my artwork.
Amazing. And because like your paintings are quite realistic in some senses, but also they have some kind of surreal elements to them, some of them, and they're not like straight up scenes of real life. Where do you get your inspiration and your ideas from for your work?
Honestly, it might sound kind of, I don't know, like a lot of the ideas literally just will just like appear in my head as a vision. Obviously, they're based off of, like I said, different experiences I've had, whatever's going on within the world. The pandemic had a huge effect on it, just because I realized that, you know, this was a significant point within history. And typically when when historians look back and they want to kind of figure out what happened within a period in history, they look at the artwork. I mean, we do it to this day when we speak about Egyptian art or art from Greece. So I took it as a responsibility to like, hey, I must record the times. Like I must, like, things that are happening right now. Like I have to take this responsibility to, record what's happening. Obviously, a lot of my work is like kind of aimed towards like the experience of people within the African diaspora, but it's twofold in the sense where I want people within the African diaspora to be able to relate to the work, but those who aren't a part of the African diaspora, I want them to be allowed to get an understanding of a world that they probably never understood, and so that they can kind of view it and like just gain more understanding, like of like what our experiences are during these times, because I feel like we all are having very unique experiences with what's been going on as of late.
For sure. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is if there was one thing that you wanted people to take away from looking at your work, what would that be?
One thing I really aim to do is just try to make people curious. I always throw in some symbolisms in there, ancient African symbolisms. And I really like when people just ask questions about, hey, what is this? What is that? And they can go ahead and do their own research, and whatever they find, it'll resonate with them. And who knows, maybe it may inspire them to create art or whatever their medium might be, or just to like kind of share that information as well. So I really just like people to like just become curious. And my main goal with every piece is just to allow people to think. I typically don't really tell people exactly what the meaning of a piece is, just because I like the fact that people are able to just use their imagination with what the piece is actually saying to them, because what it's saying to them is based off of their own experiences and things they've gone with in their have happened in their life. So I like to allow them to use their imagination, I would say. Yeah,
I mean, there's lots that I'm sure people can take away from it, definitely. And I do think your work is really special and it's really powerful, not only because of the skill being used, but like you said, the fact that you're expressing the times that we're living in, reflecting whatever's happening in the world right now in a really unique way. And not only is this a historical depiction of life in 2020 or the past decade, which people from the future will look back on and like analyze and look at, but it's also kind of communicating a feeling of the time as well. And sometimes like art can do that much better than words can. And whether it's something that people relate to or is giving another perspective that maybe people didn't see before, I think that artists that use their talent to do this are really important artists for our time, definitely.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I mean, are there any other pieces you want to kind of talk about on the booth before we go to questions from the audience?
You can check out Nefertiti's Gaze, the one to the left there on the center wall.
This one.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one that I actually did a while ago. I think in like 2012. This is one where I actually just started like learning a little more about just Egyptian history, Egyptian culture. Nefertiti was one that when I was doing the research, I just kept seeing the name of this queen, Queen Nefertiti. I just kept seeing the name, so I did my research, and I just was heavily inspired to do a piece of artwork just based off of the information that I found on her.
And how long would it take for you to make a piece of art like this on Microsoft Paint?
Yeah, it can take, I've gotten a lot better, but it can take upwards to like a month.
Wow.
Of clicking. But I have gotten better just by being more responsible with my time, devoting more time to it. But yeah, it's quite tedious just because it's like, and like doing it with a mouse as well, like it just takes a lot of just concentration and just patience as well.
Well, she's really beautiful piece. It's really nice.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you for talking through your work. It's super interesting, and I'm looking forward to having a look at more of the pieces in the booth when the fair is on next week. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and if Faye and Lola, if you want to come back on, and I'm going to have a look in the chat and see if we have any questions. Okay. So first question here, we've got a few questions. To all of the artists, what has been your favourite project or series to work on? I'm going to take that question.
I'll start it off. I would say recently my I don't even know if I would call it favorite, but one that I really just felt really connected to was the work that I was doing pertaining to when the pandemic first hit, and just like the mood within just society, especially within especially New York City. New York City is the environment and just the atmosphere within New York City has been very different from what it was before the pandemic. And I just trying my best to kind of just mirror the feeling of the times within my work. I don't know, I just really resonated with those pieces.
You guys, do you have a favorite project or series of yours?
I think something that I've been really enjoying recently is my podcast is called Explorations. So I'm in season 2, and I've been having conversations with people and just learning how different our minds are. So I started the podcast last year, right in the middle of the protest, and I was like, we're desperately in need of connection. I think a lot of the alienation that happens is because we don't know what people are like. Like, it's easy to put people on their blanket statement when you don't know them. So I was like, what would it look like to create a safe space where people can come and have a conversation without being judged for your views, for what you believe in, and let's just listen and see how that transforms us. So it's been really cool stretching myself to have conversations and listening and learn about people's stories, even the people that are familiar to us. So I've interviewed my brother, my sister, and then I'm interviewing my second brother. So it's just like, even though you know someone, there's so much underneath, there's so much of their story. So it gives me an opportunity to look at them with curiosity and say, how did that failure affect you? And this is how I failed in the past, and bringing other people in, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's failed in something. So because I do believe emotions are universal, I love hearing how somebody else resonates with like what I'm experiencing. So that's been fun.
Amazing. That does sound fun. Faye, do you have a favorite series of yours?
I actually don't, but for sure I feel like I'm very connected to this last piece that I have like here on my back, Somewhere to Disappear, and it just resonates with me. It was like Somewhere to Disappear. It's also like a documentary about Alex Soth, is like a famous photographer, and it was kind of a homage to this one as well. And I guess I look forward to go back to California and explore a bit more. And yeah.
Right. We have a couple of questions for you, Faye. The first one was, how big are your pieces? I know you do them in all sizes, don't you?
Definitely, yeah. But for example, the 3 big pieces that I have, like as you approach the booth, they are 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters, so they're like square, and that would translate to 40 inches for the States. Yeah, but I do have them like quite a lot of sizes.
And then we had a question here, do you ship worldwide? So the virtual fair will open next Tuesday, and it's running from Tuesday to Sunday. Everyone can have a look at, like I said, navigate through, look at the artworks, go through to artists' Saatchi Art profiles where you can then buy the work, and Saatchi Art do ship worldwide, and it's included in the price of the work. So yes, if you want to buy any of the pieces you've seen, definitely come to the fair and you can buy them, and they ship worldwide. I can't remember, you probably mentioned this, but can you just remind us, Lola, what's the name of your podcast? Is one of the questions.
It's called Explorations. And the whole basis is exploring the human emotion and trying to connect us to each other.
Amazing. So I will check that out for sure. Another question here. Do you all have any advice for artists just starting out? Where do you start when thinking about selling independently, meeting other artists, or getting your work out there?
I would say that the most brave thing is to actually start showing your work and feeling comfortable with that. With being honest to yourself, I guess, also, because your art, I think it should be like a representation of who you are. So when you get to this point, then I think you're gonna find your audience. I mean, we are like 7 billion, or I don't know how many we are in this world, so you're gonna definitely find your audience afterwards.
Thanks, May. Watson, a question for you. What's your favourite piece from the collection in your booth and why?
I would say my favorite piece from the collection is probably a piece that I created called Caged God. Because I actually created it when I was working within corporate America. I was sitting in my cubicle and I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt kind of trapped. I just felt trapped, and I got my MBA, and a lot of people who I went to school with, they were also just voicing their thoughts and on like how, you know, just when they're in those cubicles, they just really, these are all really creative people I was meeting. They just really felt like they couldn't like really express themselves like how they wanted to. And just based off of like the way I felt and just conversations that I was having with people, I literally got the vision to create the piece. And it's basically like a woman with very large hair. She has the she's basically she doesn't fit her her cubicle. She's actually larger than her cubicle. She's like oversized, like too large for it. And it's kind of like I don't know. It's like I said, I don't typically like to tell completely what the images mean, because they all have a meaning to them. But a lot of people have just expressed that they just resonate with her. They have that feeling as well as they're kind of just sitting in the cubicle. And I did notice that Lola. I saw Lola. I was like,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
It's literally like the.
I was like, the fact that my hair is big too. I was like, yep. Cool. I was like, yep. I just think I'm on my student loans. So okay.
Yes, but that's probably one of my favorite pieces from what's in the exhibit.
Nice, thank you. And we've got quite a funny question here. Watson, I love your pieces and can't believe you make it on Microsoft Paint. Mind blown. Have you ever had an issue where you forgot to save the file and lost your artwork?
Yes, there have been nightmares where a blackout might happen out of nowhere, and I didn't save the work, and I had to start from scratch. And it never typically like is where it never typically never typically looks like how it did before, when you really were like kind of, because you're kind of rushing afterwards. So yeah, it has happened before.
Yeah. Oh man. And then one final question for all of you. Oh, actually, okay, I missed a question. There's a couple more questions, but one question to all of you: how do you overcome creative block?
I'd like to go first with this one. I actually have recently been going through a creative block, just where I'll be honest, like a lot of my music really inspires me with a lot of my work as well. And since the pandemic, there hasn't really been a lot of music that's been coming out. And just also just being inside for so long, like over a year now, like I did notice I was kind of going through a creative block. But recently I don't know, it just came to me that you have to create freely without too much thought, without too much like work out what other people will think, without, will this sell or anything like that. You just have to be free with what you're creating. You just have to like, just be one with it sounds kind of out of it, but just be one with the frequency of the time, and the inspiration will automatically come to you.
I think pressure is quite a hard one there, because you would feel this pressure you have to always create. And if you're not, it's like this, you must be doing something. But like, if you just go with it and accept that, like, what will be, and you have to go through some phases where a bit more difficult creatively, and then others kind of go with it.
I think my answer would be to be aware. Kind of me too. It took a while before I released the first, like the last episode. I think it was a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, did I have something to say? Should I speak up? What do I have to say? But then it always gets to a point for me where it's like, it's almost like art is oxygen, and when I'm holding myself back, I can't breathe. So even though I sometimes try to put art on the side, I'm like, no, it's not as important. But then my mind is like, no, we need to go on a walk. We need to write something. We need to create something small. So for me, if you're having a blockage, I say be aware of your emotions, like actually admit that you're having a hard time creating, and then ease into it. And also don't be afraid to need encouragement. You can reach out to friends and be like, for some reason, my mind is blocked. Like, have conversations. I notice like when I talk freely with people, it's like there's a way off and I almost feel like dancing and I'm flowing and it's freer. So I'd say invite community and be honest about where you're at, because that always helps me.
Thank you. And Faye, we just have a last question for you. How did you start doing art? I know we spoke about your architecture.
Yeah, so while I was studying architecture, I was introduced to Photoshop and other softwares, and basically as I needed to escape from my projects and of the things that I had to do and be good at, I started doing all these collages that it was basically just, for me. I didn't have like any intention back then, and I didn't even I didn't knew what was gonna happen, but yeah, this is how I started it. And then basically at some point I realized that most of my friends would have something like a small thing that they would just print on a regular paper, and they would just have it on their walls. And then I just thought, okay, why don't I just pursue it and see what happens?
Well done, yeah, for doing that, because yeah, we're all glad that you did. Well, thank you all three of you so much, and thank you everyone who joined to listen. Like I said, the fair is running next week from Tuesday to Sunday. So I think as a Small World member, you'll be sent the link and invitation to come and explore the fair. And you can buy the work and see all of our other artists as well. There's so many amazing artists. And for anyone in Brooklyn, we will be coming back to Brooklyn for an in-person fair in July. So yes, we will hopefully see you all then. And thank you guys again. It was really lovely talking to you all and learning more about you and your work. So thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.